Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party. Good evening. I am Cadet Thomas Eiselminger, Treasurer of the Class of 2016, and your Master of Ceremonies for this evening. I would like to welcome you all to the 100th Night Banquet for the Class of 2016. Let me begin by introducing you to our official party. The Class of 2016 is honored to welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Anthony Noto, Chief Financial Officer of Twitter, and his spouse, Ms. Noto. The Superintendent of the United States Military Academy and his spouse, Lieutenant General Robert Caslin Jr. and Mrs. Caslin. The Command Sergeant Major of the United States Military Academy and his spouse, Command Sergeant Major David Clark and Mrs. Clark. The Commandant of the United States Corps of Cadets and her spouse, Brigadier General Diana Holland and Mr. Holland. The Command Sergeant Major of the United States Corps of Cadets, Command Sergeant Major Don Ripplemeyer, and the Dean of the Academic Board, Brigadier General Timothy Traynor. Please remain standing for this evening's invocation to be delivered by Cadet David Grossman, and remain standing for this evening's toasts.
I invite you to pray with me, if you so choose. Lord, as our class gathers together tonight to celebrate this milestone in our journey here at West Point, we have so much gratitude to give. Although I know we are eager to feel the weight of gold bars on our shoulders come the 21st of May, I also know that as that date draws nearer, we increasingly feel the true weight that responsibility will carry. And so I ask for you to help us, Lord, to make the most of these 97 days remaining at West Point. Let us, in these 97 days, work to leave behind an academy stronger than the one we arrived in. Help us to reflect on our experience and to prepare us for the journey ahead. Give us the strength to fight off apathy, the courage to do what is right, the humility to put others before ourselves, and the wisdom to remember our true purpose here at our rock-bound Highland home. We ask these things of you for these next 97 days and every day thereafter as we continue to serve this great nation. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please charge your glasses for this evening's toasts. Just wait for the chatter.
Ladies and gentlemen, I propose a toast to the President of the United States.
I propose a toast to the United States Army.
I propose a toast to United States Military Academy.
Class of 2016, I propose a toast to our guests. Ladies and gentlemen, please ensure your glasses are charged with water for the fallen comrade toast.
As you entered the dining room this evening, you may have noticed a small table in a place of honor. It is set for one military member to represent each of the military services. This table is our way of recognizing the members of our profession of arms who are absent from our midst. The table is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his oppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their motives in answering our nation's call to arms. The chair is empty. They are missing. The napkin is black, the American color for mourning. A single red rose reminds us of the hearts of their loved ones. It is tied with a yellow ribbon to symbolize the everlasting hope for a joyous reunion with those yet unaccounted for. A lone candle flame represents an eternal flame for their sacrifices. The slice of lemon on the bread plate reminds us of their bitter fate. There's also salt, symbolic of the tears endured by the missing and their loved ones. The wine glass is inverted. Our distinguished comrades cannot toast with us this night or join in our festivities. Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, as we solemnly toast, please remain silent. To our comrades, killed in action, missing in action, and prisoners of war.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? At this time, allow me to welcome our class president, Cadet Eugene Coleman III.
Mr. Noto, General Caslin, General Holland, General Trainer, Sergeant Major Clark, Sergeant Major Ripplemeyer, honored guests in class of 2016, welcome to our 100th night banquet. You can clap for that, that's fine, might as well. Now, though we're at the twilight of our cadet careers, that does not preclude us from creating new firsts for our class history. So with that in mind, tonight I would like to announce, in honor of our guest speaker, that the class of 2016's 100th night banquet will be the first West Point event that you can actually live tweet. Just use the hashtag 100th night, and post your tweets during the banquet. So, certainly tonight is a tweet-worthy event because it signifies that our class is in its final stretch at the Academy, which during plebe year seemed like a lifetime away. We have less than 100 days until we graduate from this phenomenal institution and commission as second lieutenants in the United States Army. In this moment, we can reflect upon the experiences and amazing people that have helped us get to this point. This experience has had many ups and downs along the way, and it finally feels like we're about to receive the reward of graduation for our hard work and commitment. These formative years have helped us grow in ways we never thought imaginable. And I feel confident that our class has exceptional leadership capabilities and a fighting spirit that will help shape how our generation is perceived in the future. Although I would submit that in these final moments, these final months, we must press forward more than ever before. We must together sprint through the finish line, because only together can we surmount the obstacles that lay ahead. We have to sprint like we did when we were trying to pass the IOCT after post night. We made it through that, and we can make it through the obstacles that lie ahead, such as the first EAPFT, and trying to figure out what we should know from Millart WPRs. Lastly, I'd like to say, as always, it is my great pleasure to serve as the president of the hardest working and hardest playing class at West Point. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce the 59th Superintendent of the United States Military Academy, Lieutenant General Robert L. Caslin, Jr.
General Mr. Holland, General Trainer, Command Sergeant Major and Mrs. Clark, Command Sergeant Major Ripplemeyer, Mr. and Mrs. Noto, distinguished guests, welcome to 100th night. To the class of 2016, with honor we lead, congratulations. And to each and every one of your guests, a special welcome as well. So 100 days to graduation, or actually 97 days, but who's counting, right? And all of us here who have been there can tell you from our own experience that while these last 100 days may feel like they're moving at a snail's pace, trust us, graduation will be here before you know it. So 43 of the famed 47-month leader development experience is now behind you. You accomplished a lot of waters under the bridge, and at the end of your West Point journey, which is about near, but just as EJ alluded to a moment ago, there's still much to do in these last remaining days. But tonight is a night of celebration, and you all certainly have a lot to celebrate. The 7 semesters you've completed, completing AIEDs and MIADs and even a semester abroad, your branch and post assignments, the late night study sessions, celebrating victories on the fields of friendly strife, especially when we beat Navy. Summer training, successfully completing CLDT, and then finally having the opportunity to be the cadet in the Red Sash. The nights in the field with your friends, rain rolling down the back of your neck, mosquito bites that just won't heal, cold MREs at 2 o'clock in the morning. Ring weekend, yearling winter weekend, plebe parent weekend, barracks cleaning, enjoying a break at the Firsty Club, rehearsing for the 100th night show, and so many more. It's memories like this that last a lifetime, and it's moments with your friends and your classmates, all of which are part of the brotherhood and sisterhood that now has bonds that even run deeper than your own blood brothers and sisters. But one thing is for sure, the class of 2016 is strong and you're doing great. And I speak for the entire leadership team here at West Point when I say that we could not be more proud of what you've accomplished and what you've done so far this year and the direction you're headed. You all are doing great, and we know that you're going to keep it up and you will finish strong. Now let me introduce this evening's guest speaker. Anthony Noto is a 1991 graduate from West Point, and during his time here, he was a star linebacker on the Army football team, earning All-East and academic All-American honors. After graduating from Army Ranger School at Fort Benning, Mr. Noto served as a communications officer with the 24th Infantry Division at Fort Stewart. After the military, Mr. Noto attended business school at the University of Chicago while he was working at Kraft Foods as a branch manager, and then later continued his education and received an MBA from Wharton School of Business in 1999. And then at that same year, Mr. Noto joined Goldman Sachs and was voted the top analyst by Institutional Investor magazine for research on the internet industry. Anthony led the firm's communications and media and entertainment research team at Goldman Sachs and provided strategic direction and resource allocation for the group. He became a managing director in 2003 and a partner in 2004. And in 2008, Mr. Noto became the chief financial officer for the National Football League, a position that had been left vacant for more than 5 years. And then in October 2010, he returned to Goldman Sachs as the co-head of Goldman's Global Media Group. And in 2013, he helped Goldman score one of the biggest tech prizes around when the company won the role of lead underwriter for Twitter's initial public offering. Noto would then work as the main banker during that particular time. And then in 2014, it was no wonder that Twitter asked Mr. Noto to join their team as the company's chief financial officer. But the best part of the story with Mr. Noto is really when he was on the football team as a scout football player, and during one of the football games, the fullback had broken clear and was 30 yards with nobody between him and the end zone, except in the corner of his eye, he saw one of the opposing football players trying to close in. He could have easily made it to the goal line, but he wanted to take one last shot at the opposition. He took a 90-degree left turn, went helmet to helmet with the opposing player, ran him over, laid him flat, kept on his feet, and then he went and scored a touchdown. Anthony, we're honored to have you here with us this evening. And welcome back to your alma mater. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a warm welcome for Mr. Anthony Noto.
General Caslin, General Holland, General Trainer, my dear friends and classmates, Colonel Holly West, Lieutenant Colonel retired Mark West, my wife Kristen, and of course the class of 2016. It's a privilege to be asked to share my thoughts with you on what lies ahead in your last 140 days as cadets, and as you begin the rest of your professional lives. It was 25 years ago that my class, the class of 1991, celebrated its 100th night dinner. Many of my memories from West Point have faded over time, but I remember fondly that night, our speaker, and that weekend. I hope you are as fortunate as I was to remember that 25 years from tonight. Tonight I want to discuss two things. First, some simple words of advice on your last 140 days, and big things to consider in your lieutenant years in the Army. And then second, how to translate the motto of West Point in duty, honor, country, and all that it stands for into the culture you set for your unit as you go off on the next 25 years of your life. To start, here are some simple pieces of advice that if I could go back and do it all over again, I'd be sure to do in my last 140 days, and I'd certainly do in my time in the Army. First, cherish your last 140 days. Soak it all in. There will be nothing like your last 140 days. Do everything that is offered to do. Don't skip. Don't choose to rack out. Don't choose to watch TV. Don't say, I can always do that later. Do it all, every event, every minute, every moment. Second, graduation is the culmination of 4 years of hard work, but the last 140 days is really the celebration of 4 years, so treat it as such, and don't let one day slip by. Don't wait to say goodbye, and don't wait to say thank you. Don't leave before you throw your hat in the air. 3, keep a diary of the last 140 days. I know it sounds corny, but I wish I had. I would have loved to have gone to my classmates Mark and Holly's house after dinner with Kristen and cracked open a diary and reminisced. I give you this advice not because we do not have fond memories since February 1991, because I can assure you we do, and many of them are available for the world to see on Twitter. Okay, who won the bet for how long it would take me to say the word Twitter? I guess you guys never played bingo. But those 140 days are special, and capturing them in a vivid detail would be equally as special 25 years later. 4, the Army. Your time in the Army is a second chance to build lifelong friends. Not just new friends that are classmates you never knew or met, or older grads that you never knew or met, but friends from the ranks of ROTC, OCS, and most importantly, your soldiers. Put their names and numbers in your phone. Stay in touch with them. Stay loyal to them. You will impact their lives in unimaginable ways. You will get emotional rewards by doing things for them that will be priceless. Deploy. Number 5, deploy. Volunteer to deploy. Volunteer to go to the field. Volunteer to go to battle. No experience will be better or more fulfilling than deploying with your unit, whether it be to training at the National Training Center in Bakersfield, California, or simply a show of force in Egypt or the Sinai Peninsula, or more critically to a war zone in some far-off land in our nation's next wars. You've been trained to lead men and women in battle. Run after the opportunities to do just that. I assure you, that will be a lifetime of richer, more memorable awards. 6, remember that graduating from West Point is not the end, but the beginning. The challenges to make it here are great, but don't use that as a convenient way to say you've done the impossible and cruise over the next 50 years. Challenge yourself to take the harder road every day after you leave here. Don't make graduating from West Point the highlight of what you've achieved. Don't make it the peak of the arc of your life. Our nation picked you among so many others that did not get the opportunity that you were given to come to West Point. Graduating from West Point is the beginning of a new arc of your life and a stepping stone to greater things. And in doing so, you'll be giving back to your family, your friends, to all those that didn't get the opportunity, and you'll be giving back to our great institution. 7, the last piece of simple advice I will leave you with before speaking about duty to honor country is some sage advice an old, crusty, 3-tour Vietnam staff sergeant gave to me and the company I was in, Charlie Company, at West Point Prep School in 1986. His advice was illustrated by a story of a fatal decision a young lieutenant made that led to dozens of fatalities while leading a patrol in Vietnam. The advice was that when you are faced with a decision that could have negative consequences, ask yourself, what is the worst possible thing that could happen if I choose X? If you cannot live with the answer to that question, then don't pick that path, because the probability of the worst thing happening is irrelevant. What is relevant is the fact that if it does happen, you cannot live with the consequences, therefore don't do it. This question, this test, what is the worst possible thing that can happen and can I live with it, applies to all the decisions you will make, from getting into a car and driving after having a dozen beers, to talking to taking an unauthorized route on a patrol, to posting some mean or illicit content on social media, and so many other things in between. Trust me, I've asked myself this very question at many points in my life, be it on spring break, my senior year, when I decided not to go dune buggy riding when one of my dear classmates was killed, or in Egypt, leading the last convoy out of the desert through the city of Alexandria, or deciding whether we should add more details in a financial report for Twitter, details that could be viewed negatively, but that were important disclosures. In every instance, I've asked myself the very question Staff Sergeant Wilkins told us to ask. What is the worst thing that can happen? And in doing so, I picked the path I knew I could live with no matter what, and it has made all the difference. I want to close my comments tonight by talking about how to translate what you learned at West Point into success in life. I have from time to time reflected on many of the axioms that we learned at West Point and in the Army. The ones I recall from memory that I hope ring true to all of you today and 25 years from now, as they do for me, start with leaders set the example. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. Choose the harder right over the easier wrong. Leaders are responsible for whatever does or does not happen. You can delegate authority, but you cannot delegate responsibility. Take care of your soldiers, and they will take care of you. The discipline of a free country is not to be gained by harsh or tyrannical treatment. And finally, pride, poise, team. The last one being from our coach, Coach Young. And if he had been in the Army, he would have been a 4-star without a doubt. But when I challenge myself to pick out those things that West Point taught me that have had the greatest impact on my life, be it success in leading an organization or individual success, I find myself coming back to duty, honor, country. I would guess that after I said those 3 words, many of you continue to play General MacArthur's famous speech in your head. Those 3 words, those 3 hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be. They are your rallying points to build courage when courage seems to fail, to regain faith when there seems to be little cause for faith, to create hope when hope becomes forlorn. I can assure you that, as General MacArthur said, I do not have the elegance of diction nor the poetry of imagination to describe all that duty, honor, country can mean. But I have 3 things that I believe directly relate to duty, honor, country that I've learned over the years and passed along as advice to my teams and those I've led, mentored, or followed along the way. The world you enter when you exit these gates in 140 days will not be of the same ilk as the world you've lived in for the last 4 years. The characteristics of the people, their goals, their ethics, their character, their culture, I can assure you, will be greatly different than the culture and the ethos you've lived with for the last 4 years. Some better, some worse, but for sure not the same. You, as I did, will need to learn how to translate the leadership lessons of West Point to a message that people you lead and people you count on can relate to. I am pretty confident if you address your first platoon by studying General MacArthur's Duty, Honor, Country speech, you will lose the attention, the respect, and the ability to relate to your soldiers in 60 seconds. Similarly, if you search for metaphors of how to explain Duty, Honor, Country in your office, you will miss the mark. The 3 things I will speak to were not created by sitting down with purpose of translating Duty, Honor, Country into common phrases that would be more easily communicated and understood by people of all walks of life. They were developed over the last 25 years by constantly asking myself, what is the most critical thing to our team success? What is most critical to our individual success? And what is most critical to my success? Over the years, I've narrowed down what I think is most important to 3 things. 3 things I think are critical to driving a successful culture in an organization, and 3 things I think are most critical to accomplishing individual goals. Frankly, as I prepared my comments tonight about these 3 critical factors to building a great culture, it became very clear to me why they have worked for 25 years for me. Quite simply, they tie directly to duty, honor, country. The first is duty. Build a culture of people that run after problems. The second is honor. Build a culture of people that get to the truth. The third, country. Build a culture of people that make their footprint bigger than their foot. Let me explain all 3. Duty. You must instill a culture that sees it as their duty of people. You must instill a culture in your people that see it as a duty to run after problems. Every organization has problems that fall between the cracks of the businesses or your platoon or your companies. Problems that are not tied to one leader or another. Problems that if they don't get fixed, no one is at fault. Problems that hold the organization as a whole back. Great leaders see the problems and the lack of accountability and run after the problems to fix them, not because it's on them to fix, but because it needs to be done for the greater good. Great leaders think, how can I fix that problem? They do not think that is not my problem. They run after problems because it's their duty, because if they don't, the unit fails, even though they might succeed. Great leaders run after problems and make the organization better. Running after problems is a mindset. It's a culture. Build the mindset in your unit to run after problems, and you will instill in your unit, your company, your organization, a sense of duty without ever mentioning the word. Honor. Get to the truth. A team, a company, a unit cannot be excellent if you do not get to the truth. When I say the truth, I'm not talking about obvious elements of honor in not lying or cheating. But what I am talking about is the gray area between black and white decisions. What I'm talking about is the judgment required to make critical decisions that will lead to success or failure. You cannot make the best decisions without the right information, the right data, without all of the facts, without all of the team's perspectives, without the truth. Sometimes this means testing the choices and making sure you don't use the data that solves for your favorite outcome, but use all of the data to make the best decision. This means keeping an open mind. After you have 99% of the information and have walked 99% of the distance required to make a decision. Because it's that last 1% of information, that last 1% of the walk, that could be the most critical piece of information which points the scales in a different direction. I cannot tell you how often leaders have made decisions before they've had any data, let alone 99% of the data, perspective, or information. As a leader, you must set the example and drive to the truth. Drive the organization to always get to the truth, because if you honor the truth, you will make the best decisions, and only then the team can reach excellence. So remember, honor means getting to the truth. Country. Make your footprint bigger than your foot. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry, all great examples of athletes that make the other 4 players on the ice or in the basketball court better than they could be otherwise. They are all people that make their footprint bigger than their foot. They are special, talented athletes and individuals. But you do not have to be the greatest athlete to make your footprint bigger than your foot. What you have to do is play for the name on the front of their jersey, not on the back. There is no doubt in my mind that at some point over the next 10 years, you will come up with a great innovative idea that can drive the performance of your unit you can drive the performance of your unit, whether it be in the Army or private sector. It might be a new SOP, a new tactical maneuver, or a new strategy that beats Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, or Google. What you must do, what you have to do at that point is resist the urge just to use it to make your unit better or your team better, and instead compel yourself to share that idea with every unit just like yours, so it makes every unit better, not just your unit. We had a great product manager at Twitter. He wrote a strategy document with tons of detailed analysis of massive amounts of data that we have at Twitter, leading to a great strategy that would have a dramatic impact on his business. The analysis, the implications, and the plan were so good, the presentation was made into a bound book, and it was handed out to all of our board members. They all praised him and patted him on the back. It was a proud moment for him, for sure. I had a close relationship with the PM, and I asked him to come see me the next day. When he walked in, I held the book up and said, "This is a great piece of work." But in my mind, it's an F, a failure with a capital fucking F. He looked at me with shock and asked why. I said, because there's 6 other PMs on our team and at this company, all at the same level as you, all facing the same challenges, but in different areas. An A on this work would have been going to them and telling them what you had done, what you had learned, what you had planned to do, and then coming to the board with an encyclopedia set of 7 editions, 1 for each product area instead of 1 edition just for your product. I talked to him about making his footprint bigger than his foot and to be Steph Curry, not LeBron James. I can assure you, nothing is more satisfying than playing for the name on the front of your jersey and winning for your country. In 140 days, you'll start the second most critical phase of your life. There's no way to predict the obstacles, the opportunities, the failures or successes that you will experience. The only thing that you can control, is what you do. So work as hard as you can, because if you do, unless you're outmanned, you'll always succeed. Do the right thing, and if you have to ask yourself if something is right or wrong, then you already know it's wrong, and don't do it. And last, take care of other people. If you do those 3 things and instill in your teams, in your unit, in your organization, a culture that runs after problems, duty, a culture that gets to the truth, honor, and a culture of people that make their footprint bigger than their foot, country, then you'll have carried with you the bedrock of West Point and those 3 hallowed words that reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, and what you will be: duty, honor, country. Thank you.
Sir, on behalf of the class of 2016 in the United States Military Academy, I'd like to thank you for joining us at our 100th night and sharing those wonderful remarks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and ensure your glasses are charged for the final toast. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose a toast to the class of 2016. With honor we lead.
Before we conclude this evening's festivities, there are several people the class would like to thank for making this evening possible, and we ask that you please hold your applause to the end. Our sincere appreciation to Lieutenant Colonel James Maddox, our class advisor, and Major Elizabeth Knox, our class officer in charge, for their direction and support. Thank you to the Directorate of Cadet Activities, the Cadet Hostess Office, and many organizations that have made this evening a success. Particularly, we would like to recognize the mess hall staff for their hard work in preparing and serving tonight's excellent meal. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending our 100th night banquet. This concludes the formal portion of the evening. We welcome you to visit Eisenhower Hall for the performance of our 100th night show.